No, that's serious.
It's all perspective, isn't it, Nicole? Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. This is the theme for December 2021, Journey of Becoming. The topic for today is the joy of becoming. The mind of each one of us is some part of the mind of God. Therefore, it contains within itself unlimited possibilities of expansion and self-expression. What are you going to say about that? So let's affirm together. I embrace the process of becoming a more expanded expression of God with joy. Beware of the accoutrements.
I love how everybody's personalities shine through when they get up here. It's just lovely. I'd like to start with a story that I came across. The story of a nurse in a pediatric ward who, before listening to all of the little ones' chests with a stethoscope, would plug it into their ears first. And, their eyes would, generally light up with awe and wonder as they were listening to their own heartbeat. And then there was 4-year-old David. She placed the disc over his heart and asked, "What do you suppose that is?" So he was listening to the tapping in his chest, and this beautiful grin poured across his face. And he said, "Is that God knocking?" and I love that idea. I love that idea that our heartbeat, everything is the activity of God, right? Our heartbeat is God knocking. And so you can just use your imagination what God is knocking, the knocking is for you. And for me, it's just a reminder of this topic of today, which is to enjoy the journey of becoming, the journey of becoming a more expressed presence of the divine that already exists within me, more expanded, more aware, more loving, more peaceful, more creative, whatever qualities that you're wanting to express more of. And so the truth is, we are all, whether we are aware of it or not, we are all infinite, eternal beings on a journey of becoming freer, fuller, newer, more magnificent expressions of the divine nature that we are. I love what Andrew Cohen wrote in Evolutionary Enlightenment. And this is just a repeat from last week. It's just so powerful to think about it. He said, before the Big Bang, there was only unbroken oneness. Unbroken oneness. But the one life, chose to become the many. And in the birth of the many, there was relatedness. So the university was created for relatedness. Cool, huh? And so in order to more actively participate in this journey of becoming, to more actively participate in our own evolution of consciousness, it's important to daily drop into the silence and re-experience that unbroken oneness. Because there's great joy in it. That's my experience of it. There's great joy in that reconnection, in that dropping into the unbroken sense of oneness within ourselves. And then the big challenge is to bring that unbroken oneness, that sense of connection, into our daily lives, to be as conscious of our unity with all life, our oneness with all life as we move through our day. what does that look like for you to be in a consciousness of oneness when you're confronting someone who is not coming from a place of oneness and are stressed out or confrontive or angry, and so that's really our journey. That's what our journey is all about, is bringing that oneness, which means the peace, the joy, the love, the compassion that comes from that place into our daily lives and into our relationships with others and with situations, too, that can be very challenging. And I love Natalie Wynn Pace's perspective on this. This is what she says. She says, what looks like the end of the world today is often divine intelligence prodding us. I was thinking about the knocking. Prodding us to incubate, to cocoon, to change ourselves from the inside out and emerge the butterfly. And then her comment after that is, don't fight it. Don't fight it. So it's really about understanding that these moments of facing the big challenges in life, and not even our personal ones, but the global ones, is to allow those things, and Barbara Marx calls them evolutionary drivers, these crises that happen. Use these crises or evolutionary drivers to turn within and to do the inner work that helps us to remove the scales of limitation and lack and helplessness and all of those other feelings that we have, to release all of that and to step into our butterfly selves, our divine magnificence that has available to it the creative power to transform not only our inner selves, but to transform what's going on around us on the planet. And there are many people who are engaged in that now. I love reading Optimist Daily. You know that because there are many, many examples of people who are working toward cleaning up the environment, implementing new clean energy technologies all over the planet. And so it is happening, and there's a little piece in all of that that is the part of each one of us, even if it is to bring more light, more peace, more joy onto the planet through how we interact with everyone. So it doesn't have to be some grand thing like a new invention. It's really how we show up in our daily lives in the midst of turmoil and other things that are going on. How we bring that energy of peace and collaboration and creative solution into whatever it is that we're doing, whatever our occupation, whatever is going on in our lives. So this thing that we call the butterfly self has been named by some of our current visionaries of the time, the universal human, the next version of humanity. When you go up the scales of evolution, you see all the different evolutionary steps of humanity. Well, this is like the next step in evolution, the universal human, that beautiful marriage of human and divine, where we understand that we are divine beings, and so we show up in that way in this human incarnation. So therefore, in this state, we're more compassionate, wise, ready to meet the challenges that are before us. So to support this process of becoming our butterfly selves, our universal human selves, it's important to stop regularly and assimilate what it is that we have gathered in wisdom and in experience over this last year. To stop, assimilate, and integrate it. And so that involves not only going into the silence and reflecting, it also involves celebrating it, acknowledging it, celebrating it with joy. And I would like to also share another little perspective on that too. I think it's important also to reflect on the idea that we are living fulfillment of the dreams of people who came before us. Have you ever thought about that? Not only the dreams of your parents, but the dreams of the people who have stood for voting rights. You know, the dreams of the people who stood for any type of social justice up until now, and those who still stand in it, but the ones who came before and planted the seeds of freedom in all of its different forms. And parts of that we get to live. It's important to integrate that, assimilate that, give thanks for it, and feel the joy of it, celebrate it. And then realize that the seeds that we are planting now, a world that works for all, we talk about that a lot, right? Heaven on earth. Those seeds that we are planting in consciousness, everything starts with an idea and becomes a reality. Future generations will be living the fulfillment of our dreams. And we are also living the fulfillment of dreams we've had early in our lives as well. I mean, that's the way it works, but it works on an individual level. It works on a collective level. So take a moment and celebrate that. Feel the joy of it, of being a part of this collective intention to improve life for everyone here on the planet and to evolve into that next step in evolution to be the universal humans in this time who are making the difference. Joy is a choice. So when Moses came upon the burning bush and asked, how do I address this, whatever this voice is that's speaking to me, the response was, you can call me I am. There's another translation of that, though. When they looked at the Aramaic translations, or the Aramaic original words, the other translation is I am becoming, not just I am, but I am becoming. A deep expression of how the unmanifest becomes the manifest, and it's an unfolding process. Ever more complex forms, ever more newer and different ways of relating, whatever that is. The unmanifest is the ever becoming the manifest. It's a process, it's an unfoldment. So spirit in all its glory is ever becoming new expressions of itself in, through, and as each one of us. Take a breath. Very powerful. So your mind is one with the mind of God. There's no separation. Therefore, your mind contains unlimited possibilities for self-expression and expansion. I'm just taking that phrase, that quote that was read by Nicole so beautifully and making it very personal. So, just as God sculpts the universe out of its own stuff, we can call it energy, substance, whatever it is, but light waves through thought, the thought in the mind of God, light waves collapse into form. And it's the same as us. We are the microcosm and the macrocosm. As we think, light waves collapse into form and experience. And what I'm sharing with you is quantum science, quantum physics. It's not something I'm just making up here from the pulpit. That's what happens. That's pretty amazing when you think about it. Our thoughts collapse light waves into form and experience. Very powerful. So let's relish in it with joy. Let's enjoy it. You know, it's not a struggle and you know, it's something to be enjoyed. It's an amazing gift that we get to use and to sculpt our own lives then. We can do it with joy. There's great joy in knowing that we get to choose who we become in the process of sculpting our lives. There was a story of a young man who experienced paralysis not only in his arms, both arms, but in both legs, from various accidents that he had been in. And someone asked him one day, does your physical condition color the way you look at life? And he said, yes, and I get to choose the color. That is an empowered statement, isn't it? I get to choose the color. I get to choose how I feel about it and what I do with it. Empowerment. So knowing the bliss of your divine nature, that joy of creating through daily meditation, through study, through coming together in spiritual community, you are empowered to choose the color of your thoughts and your feelings in response to circumstances. We may not be, we may not be able to, what am I trying to say? Control something that's going on somewhere in the world, but we can decide how we respond to it and what we can do to be a change agent in it from this moment forward. So think about it. From that place of empowerment, how do we show up? We know that we have that kind of power to choose our thoughts and therefore choose how we feel about things. And with all the evolutionary crises that are going on right now, ecological crises and things like that, we have a choice. And just recently, actually, I think it was yesterday, tornadoes were going through Kentucky. How do we choose to respond to that? Do we choose to go, oh, the end is here and it's all over, and there's nothing I can do, or what is your heart calling you to do about that? Is it a prayer? Is it a donation? Whatever it is, we do have the power to shift and change. Is it writing letters to people of assurance? Is it, whatever it might be for you. There is something, we are empowered to look at the situation differently and to take action on it. So joy, the joy of co-creation is a choice. And finally, joy of seeing with sacred eyes. I love this. This is just a beautiful, I've told this story before, but some of you who've been around for a long time, you'll recognize it. It's a beautiful story. It's a story of a 93-year-old, petite, well-poised and proud woman. Did I say 92 years old? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Who was legally blind and was waiting patiently in the lobby of the nursing home, waiting for her room. And she was there because her husband, 70 years, had recently passed. And because of her state of, the way her being legally blind and so on, she was just unable to care for herself. So this was the next step. And she smiled sweetly when she was told that her room was ready. As she maneuvered her walker to the elevator, the aide provided a visual description of what her room looked like, all the way down to the eyelet curtains that were hanging in her window, getting her prepared for it. And she said, "Oh, I just love my room." And she said with great joy and enthusiasm. And the aide said, "Mrs. Jones, you haven't even seen the room. Just wait till you see it." And she said, "That doesn't have anything to do with it. Joy and happiness is something you decide ahead of time. Whether I like the room or not doesn't depend on the furniture, on how the furniture is arranged. It is how my mind is arranged." how I arrange my mind. And I've already decided to love it. She said, I make decisions like that every morning. I have a choice. I can spend the day in bed recounting the difficulty I have with parts of my body that no longer work. Or I can get out of bed and be thankful for the ones that do. Every day is a gift, as long as my eyes open. I found a beautiful quote by Robert Keck in his book called Sacred Eyes. He said, if you look with cynical eyes, you see a truncated vision bereft of hope. With sacred eyes, you can see the larger, more realistic picture. Sacred eyes can penetrate the opaqueness of materialism and reductionism and can sort through the chaos of our time to see the emerging values, and I add to that the emerging human of the 21st century. So what is your choice? Cynical eyes or sacred eyes? Can you hear the call? I hear it. The call to expand your perspective and see your personal and the global issues with sacred eyes. What happens when you do that? And there's no substitute for daily spiritual practice to reconnect with that sacred aspect of ourselves, that oneness consciousness through which we can then show up and be able to see with sacred eyes, a higher vision for life. What is ours to do individually and as a community to co-create a world that works for all? So here's my conclusion. We get to share the joy of becoming in this spiritual community. And I love that. Can you feel the pull of the vision of a world that works for all? I feel it often because I go through the statement often, it's in my prayers often. And that pull is calling me to become more of who I am, to express more of my divine nature, to be more compassionate, to be more loving, to be more in service to others. And so as we come together, as we connect with like souls here at CSL Delaware, who are committed to being the ones who contribute to the fulfillment of the vision, to be the ones who plant the seeds of a world that works for all. The ones who in future generations will look back and say, I don't know who planted those seeds of a world that works for all, but I'm sure glad they did. Think about that. So we vision and envision. We explore and discover. We love and connect. The mystic within us sees life through sacred eyes and goes about the daily process of removing the scales of limitation, fear, and cynicism through our daily spiritual practice. And we emerge as a new level of evolutionary being, the universal human, suited to respond to the challenges of life with strength, with wisdom, and, yes, with joy. So we get to choose. Complain about the journey of becoming, or we get to choose. Shall we enjoy it? Shall it be the joy of becoming? It's your choice, my friends. Let's turn within in prayer. And so it is with a heart just bursting with joy and with gratitude, I speak this word. I speak this word from a heart that knows that right here where I am, right here where each of us is the fullness of God. The fullness of that field, that one mind of infinite possibility and infinite potentiality from which I can become more nature. So that means I'm becoming more peace, more love, more joy, more wisdom, more intelligence, more and more of that goodness that God is showing up as me. It's showing up as each and every one of us as we actively engage in the joy of becoming. So I am so grateful to know that we are standing here, ready, available to be used for Spirit for the highest good of our own lives and for all. That we are here to be the visionaries who plant the seeds of truth, who plant the seeds of a world that works for all, heaven on earth. And I am so grateful to be among universal humans who stand tall in our awareness of the great creative power that we have within our very own minds. And so I'm just standing here in awe and wonder. So happy, so grateful, so filled with the joy of life and living. And I release this word into the universal law of mind. And invite us all to affirm it by standing and saying great power and intention. Saying together. Let's stand and say, yes! And so it is. Thank you, my friends.